The Week 5 waiver wire is one of the best I've ever seen from top to bottom in my 5 NFL seasons covering fantasy football. This waiver slate is loaded. There is everything that you could be possibly looking for, so let's dive right into it. For starters, it is Week 5, so that means that anybody on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, is eligible to return to practice, start practicing, and even be activated for Week 5 games. So that includes Carolina Panthers running back Jonathan Brooks, although they've said it doesn't appear he's going to come off the PUP quite yet. Browns running back Nick Chubb, who is returning to practice this week, and then Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson. We haven't heard too much about his status, but those 3 players are eligible to come off of PUP this week, so keep that in mind. If they're available in your league, definitely go pick them up. If you can go trade for them on the low and you're a 3-1 or a 4-0 team, definitely go ahead and do that. Just thought I'd give out that disclaimer first. Now let's get into the actual waiver list. I'm going through my top 15 guys, and the reason I'm going through 15 is because, like I said, this is a very, very good waiver slate, especially given that we do have 4 bye weeks this week. We do have some major injuries this week, so a lot of people are going to be going to the waiver wire looking for players, and this is a good week to be doing so. So the players that I'm going to talk about in my top 15 are under 40% rostered in sleeper leagues. But if you have these players available, I'll let you know where they would rank on the list so that you know exactly where they would go. So Justin Fields, if you need a quarterback, he would be very high on the list. He is 42% rostered. Chase Brown and Rico Dowdle, both part of like committee backfields, but they have been very efficient and it appears they are starting to work into more of a workload. They would rank number 6 for Chase Brown and number 5 for Rico Dowdle if they were available in your league, but they are rostered in over 50% of leagues right now. Alexander Mattison, we just got a quote yesterday saying that he's earned more work. He would rank number 6 on this list if he were available in your league. Roschon Johnson would rank number 10. Again, probably a contingency play given that DeAndre Swift played better, but still an interesting roster nonetheless. And then Wan'Dale Robinson would rank number 6 if available as well. Obviously had a big PPR scam day on Thursday Night Football. So let's get into my top 15. Again, I'm going in descending order. So my number 15 guy, if he's available in your league, and my number 3 guy is available, you should pick up my number 3 guy over my number 15 guy. So number 15 on this list is Tutu Atwell, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams. He has 80 yards in back-to-back games, a 21% target share the last 2 weeks as well. He's a fine spot starter if you have bye weeks, if you have injuries, and you don't feel like really spending up on the waiver wire. You could probably get him as a free ad once waivers clear, or just as a 0% fab bid if you're looking for some waiver production there. He's an interesting guy, but probably not super high up on the priority list. Number 14, we have Tre Tucker, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders. Been solid the last 2 games, 15 plus PPR points in back-to-back weeks. If and only if Davante Adams continues to be out, he could be a, managed league flex play if you guys needed a fill-in option, but I don't think Tre Tucker is a very high priority guy because generally there's better options on the waiver wire this week at wide receiver for long-term starters, and I don't think you'll know when to start this guy. I think Tre Tucker looks good. I think he's a fine player, but I don't know if you're going to know exactly when to throw this guy into your lineup. He's probably a better in best ball type of guy, but if Davante Adams continues to be out, I do think that he could be like a top 50 play at the wide receiver position this week. Number 13 on this list is Justice Hill. Again, a managed league headache in my opinion. I don't know if you're going to know when to start this guy in traditional redraft leagues. I believe that Justice Hill will continue to have games like this where he puts up 20 PPR points, or, in week 1, he put up 11 PPR points. He's had 2 good games so far this year, but are you ever going to know when that is coming, right? That's the only thing I have an issue with Justice Hill about rostering a guy like this is, yeah, you could throw him into your lineup as a desperation RB2 this week. For example, if you ran like a hero RB like I did in my home league, and you have Breece Hall as your RB1 and J.K. Dobbins, who's your RB2, is on bye this week, you could throw Justice Hill into your RB2, but I think he's kind of like a desperation running back flex play as opposed to somebody that's going to be a fixture of your fantasy lineups going forward. So I'd probably let my league mates chase the big week if I possibly could, but again, he's worth a roster if you can get him for basically nothing. Jalen Polk, my number 12 ad on the week, wide receiver of the New England Patriots. Last week, I told you guys to get ahead of the Xavier Legette breakout, and spoiler alert, he is very, very high on this list. This week, I'm telling you guys to get ahead of the Jalen Polk breakout. The Patriots offense isn't much, hasn't been super good this year, but Jalen Polk ran 87% of the routes this past week and received a 24% target share. That's going to have value, especially if he does start to come into his own. He is a rookie right now. It's possible that he has a big game coming up here. Both of those marks are career highs for him, and he had actually a really nice catch on the sideline. He hasn't had like great underlying metrics so far. His PFF receiving grade's like 58 right now. I believe he's like 0.75 yards per route run. He still has a ways to go as a player, but if you have a deep bench on your team, if you're in a 12-man, 14-man, something like that, or you don't need much production off of the waiver wire, let's say you already have 2 or 3 really good options to throw into your lineup if you need to, and you have 2 or 3 bench spots that you're just kind of stashing players on, I think Jalen Polk is a decent option there. Number 11 on the waiver pickup list is Antonio Gibson, 27% rostered right now, running back of the New England Patriots. Butterfingers Ramondre Stevenson basically fumbles every single week, and eventually I think Gerard Mayo is going to get sick of that. At the very least, I think Antonio Gibson is, and I said this on our live yesterday, one of these guys that you're willing to burn a bench spot for. As I just talked about with Jalen Polk, let's say you're in a league, it's a 12-man league, you have 6 bench spots. I think that's a pretty traditional, standard type of format. 2 or 3 of those bench spots at absolute most should be reserved for like spot starters. So in my home league, for example, I'm rostering 2 quarterbacks because I have Anthony Richardson as my QB1. He's a little bit up and down. So I also have Brock Purdy. He's like one of those spot starter bench spots that I'm reserving for. Then I also have Michael Pittman as my 5th wide receiver in case I need to throw him into my lineup. And that's basically it. I also have Rico Dowdle as my 3rd running back in case I need him, which I do this week, like I said, because I have J.K. Dobbins on bye. But then the rest of my roster is filled out with just like upside swings. And I think Antonio Gibson is one of those guys that you throw onto your bench, let him just be an upside swing for your team. You should absolutely devote 1 or 2 or maybe 3 bench spots to a spot starter, like some of these guys we're going to talk about in a second, or like a Tre Tucker, or like a Tutu Atwell if you need one. But at the same time, I don't think you should be burning bench spots on guys that are never going to see your lineup. And Antonio Gibson is probably going to need a Ramondre Stevenson injury to ever see your lineup. But then again, he could be one of those high upside starters that becomes an RB2 if Ramondre Stevenson were to miss any time. So he needs to be rostered in pretty much all 12-man, 5-6 bench spot type of leagues because he is a very good contingent upside play. My number 10 waiver ad on the week is really gross. You got to plug your nose for this one. Juju Smith-Schuster is who you have to potentially go and pick up because Juju is not probably that good, but Rashee Rice was a 40% slot share wide receiver. He is most likely out for the year. We haven't actually confirmed that he's torn his ACL yet, which is super weird. Maybe that's bullish for Rashee Rice, but as a slot receiver who won against zone coverage primarily, that role that Rashee Rice plays was Juju Smith-Schuster's role back in 2022 when he finished as a top 36 wide receiver in PPR points per game. A year in which Patrick Mahomes won the MVP award without any real wide receivers other than Juju and Travis Kelce. So he had 45 touchdowns and 5,200 freaking passing yards that year. Juju might not be much, but I think the role that Rashee Rice vacates is a role that he can win in. If you lost Rashee Rice or other wide receivers due to injury or due to bye weeks or whatever, I actually think Juju is a very, very sneaky pickup that you could even throw into your lineup as soon as this week. The most likely scenario is that Kelce just takes all of the targets, and of course Xavier Worthy is going to be involved as well, but both he and Juju Smith-Schuster coexisted in 2022, like I said, on those over the middle of the field zone coverage type of targets. Juju was a top 36 wide receiver that year, and Travis Kelce, of course, was elite and way better than any other tight end in fantasy football. So again, the most likely fallout of Rashee Rice's injury is that Travis Kelce is much better, but I do think that Juju is worth a speculative ad, especially if you don't have to spend that much to get him. His route participation has been climbing the last couple games, and I expect it to peak at like 80-90% now that Rashee Rice is expected to be out for significant time. My number 9 waiver ad is Tank Bigsby. Among all running backs this season with 15-plus carries, Tank Bigsby leads the league with 8.1 yards per carry. Travis Etienne was in and out of Sunday's game with a shoulder issue. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to persist long-term, but it seems like if Travis Etienne were to miss any time, Tank Bigsby could legitimately win people leagues, and maybe he's going to eat into Travis Etienne's workload going forward. Again, I don't think he's probably a guy that you can throw into your lineup if Travis Etienne is healthy, but he needs to be rostered in every single league because he is one of the better contingent upside plays we've seen. I know he was terrible as a rookie, but I actually really like Tank Bigsby as a prospect. He was a top 5 running back in the 2023 draft for me. He was very young coming into the league. He was just 20 years old his rookie season, and it appears he's learned a lot. Appears he has taken a step as a player, and I do think it's a possibility that they start to lean more his way as an 0-4 football team looking to kind of switch things up. He's been the better back running the ball a lot better than Travis Etienne so far this year, so we'll see how that workload plays out. Again, probably just a contingency play, but there is upside for more there. Same goes for Tyler Allgeier, who is my number 8 pickup, and again, are you sensing a theme? All these contingent upside plays at running back, they need to be rostered because Bijan Robinson, as great as he is, if he were to go down, Tyler Allgeier would win people leagues. And he's actually limited in practice right now on a short week going to Tampa. Thursday Night Football should be an interesting matchup between those two teams. If Tyler Allgeier ever has a game where he is the starting running back, he will be a top 10 running back, a top 12 running back in my weekly rankings. And for that reason and that reason alone, he needs to be rostered in every single 12-man league. Burn one of those 3 to 5 contingent upside plays on your bench for a guy like Tyler Allgeier all season long. He should be rostered. He should not be dropped. That is the type of player he is. He is one of the 3 to 5 best handcuffs in all of fantasy football. Josh Downs, my number 7 pickup on the week. It appears that Anthony Richardson will be back on the field. It doesn't look like that hip pointer that he suffered in week 4 is a major injury. In week 5 against Jacksonville, I think even if Anthony Richardson is starting, you could throw Josh Downs into your lineup because Josh Downs is a pretty good spot starter, if I'm being honest. He's fast, he's explosive, he commands targets. He has a 32% target share on the season so far since he's been on the field in the last 2 games he's played. If Joe Flacco were to ever start, I think this guy would legitimately be a top 30 to 36 wide receiver for extended periods of time. But Anthony Richardson is a lot less accurate than Joe Flacco at this point in time. He just needs to make a lot of improvements. But regardless, I think Josh Downs can be a weekly spot start, weekly flex play if you guys are looking for one with upside for more, because I think Josh Downs is just a really good player. And eventually he can command those targets and score the touchdowns like we saw in week 4 when Anthony Richardson was out of the lineup. So number 6 pickup on the week for me is Jordan Whittington, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams. Again, there is so many guys this week that if you need spot starters, if you need guys to throw right into your lineup, there's tons of dudes available. So trust me, this is a very, very good week of waivers. Jordan Whittington finally achieved a big-time role. We've been talking about him kind of as like a sleeper heading into the season, but he was never getting the routes, right? It was Tyler Johnson, it was Demarcus Robinson, it was Tutu Atwell. Well, 97% of the routes in week 4, commanding 30% of the team's targets, is very impressive to see for a rookie. And hook 'em horns to Jordan Whittington. He was a very reliable player in college. He just played with very good target competition. I mean, he had A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders, of course, Bijan, Jonathan Brooks, all those type of guys. He was never the focal point of an offense, and I do think given the way that the Rams run their offense, and Cooper Kupp is expected to be out for another couple of weeks, and Puka Nacua probably for another month at least, in the meantime, I think that Jordan Whittington can be the PPR chain mover that Matthew Stafford gravitates towards, that Sean McVay obviously likes deploying. So if you need a spot start this week because you have bye weeks, or you need a spot start this week because you lost Rashee Rice, I do think that Jordan Whittington is definitely the type of guy that you could go out and be aggressive for on the waiver wire, spend 15, 20, 25% of your budget to go out and get. Kareem Hunt is my number 5 waiver pickup on the week, 32% rostered right now of the Kansas City Chiefs. He led this backfield in touches. He looks the part. 10.5 PPR points is solid, especially for your first game on the team's roster. But am I ready to shove my chips in and say that Kareem Hunt's going to be a bell cow running back the way he was back in 2017, 2018 for this team? Absolutely not. Samaje Perine is going to be involved still. He took the only goal line carry away from Kareem Hunt in this game. He also played all of the long down and distance, all of the 2-minute drill type of work, all of the third downs. So Kareem Hunt is probably going to be the lead ball carrier of this team going forward, but we have a couple wild cards here. Carson Steele could still be involved. He's probably not going to fumble every single game, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire could come back soon. He's on the physically unable to perform or the non-football injury list right now, dealing with PTSD. It's possible that he comes back and throws a wrench into this backfield. So if you're desperate for running back help, I get the temptation to drop 50, 20, 25, 30, 40% on Kareem Hunt to know that you could throw him into your lineup. But I do think he could be a little bit of a trap on the waiver wire. I would not spend more than 15 to 25% of your total budget. And again, even if you need a running back really badly, I think there are better options available. And I will talk about him right now, which is Trey Sermon, who is my number 4 pickup of the week of the Indianapolis Colts. The official diagnosis for Jonathan Taylor is a mild high ankle sprain. That is the official diagnosis per Dr. Jesse Morris of Injury Experts. The timeline that we're looking at for Jonathan Taylor being out is at least a week, if not 2 weeks. That's what the timeline is according to the data. And according to Dr. Morris, because Jonathan Taylor suffered a tightrope ankle surgery in 2022, after the 2022 season, he had surgery on this exact same ankle for the same injury. It actually makes him more likely to come back sooner than later with this tightrope surgery, because I guess the mechanism in your ankle recovers faster, whatever the case is. I'm not a doctor, but Kyron Williams had the same thing. He had a severe ankle sprain last year, and he came back in just like 3 or 4 games as a result, when he should have probably been out like 8 games because he had tightrope ankle surgery the year prior as well. Regardless, Trey Sermon is the number 2 back on this team, and Trey Sermon projects as a low-end RB2 play this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, assuming Jonathan Taylor is out, which it looks like he will at least be out for this game, if not next week as well. That's worth a solid 20 to 30% of your fab budget if you are desperate. If you are 1-3, if you're 0-4, even if you're 2-2 and you need running back production because you have J.K. Dobbins or David Montgomery on bye or something like that, Trey Sermon is worth a 20 to 30% fab bid, because we're getting to a point in the season now where you don't want to save your fab. You want to definitely be using it. And Trey Sermon is the type of guy that if you're going to get 1 to 2 weeks of RB2 production out of, that is worth 20 to 30% of your fab, no problem. Number 3 waiver ad on the week is Tucker Kraft, tight end of the Green Bay Packers. One of the better tight end pickups that I've seen in a long time. He is only 8% rostered, so he should be widely available. Let's take a look at the Tucker Kraft timeline, shall we? I thought he was a better prospect than Luke Musgrave, even though Luke Musgrave was drafted in the 2nd round by the Packers and Tucker Kraft was drafted in the 3rd round. Tucker Kraft was much better as a rookie, higher yards per route run, better target commander, better PFF receiving grade. When they got opportunities, because both guys were banged up as rookies on and off, Tucker Kraft was clearly the best option. In the offseason, Tucker Kraft misses a lot of time with a pec injury. He missed most of training camp, missed most of OTAs and all that kind of stuff. Yet, in week 1, he comes out and he alphas Luke Musgrave, runs 79% of the routes. Of course, Jordan Love gets injured in that game, so we didn't really get to see what would happen going forward. But week 4, Jordan Love comes back, and he's the tight end 1 overall. Tucker Kraft runs 86% of the routes. He has 17.3 PPR points. He's commanding targets. He's getting targeted downfield. He's getting design targets. If the usage is strong, which it is, and he was the number 1 tight end in expected fantasy points per game this week, I believe that Tucker Kraft could be a top 12 tight end rest of season. I think he could be an every week starter. Christian Watson goes down in this game, which I'll talk about again in a second, but that opens up some targets in this offense. It appears they're going to be a 3 wide receiver offense going forward without Christian Watson, because Wicks, Dobbs, and Jaden Reed are definitely guys that you want to get on the field, and Tucker Kraft expects to be the lead tight end in that type of situation. So if you are in need of a tight end, you have Mark Andrews, you have Kyle Pitts, you have some of these guys that are not performing. Would I outright drop Mark Andrews for Tucker Kraft? Probably not. I think I would wait a week or 2 to see if Andrews can bounce back, but I would definitely burn 2 roster spots on a tight end, go and drop somebody else for Tucker Kraft, play him in the meantime, and see what happens with Mark Andrews, and eventually he could be droppable at some point. So definitely go out and target Tucker Kraft. Number 2 waiver ad on the week is Xavier Legette, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers. He was a top 8 wide receiver for me in the 2024 NFL draft. He reminded me so much of a very raw version of like Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, given the height, given the speed, given the athleticism, given the yards after catch ability. He was a very raw prospect coming out, so a slower start to his NFL career the first couple of games makes a lot of sense, especially when you factor in that he was injured during training camp. But we are finally seeing Xavier Legette involved. The Panthers traded up in the 1st round to grab Xavier Legette, and we saw why in week 4. 19.6 PPR points, 9 targets, a 24% target share, and a nice touchdown grab that he had. Eventually had a nice celebration as well. This dude could be a staple wide receiver 3 in fantasy for your lineup going forward. I don't think that's an exaggeration with the way Andy Dalton is playing. Even though Deontay Johnson appears to be the number 1 here in Carolina, Xavier Legette is an absolute must-add. He has a chance to outproduce Deontay Johnson going forward. He's a young, raw rookie. He's very explosive. He has big play upside. If you are a wide receiver needy team, you have to put in a big-time bid for Xavier Legette. I would be willing to spend 25, 30, 35% of my fab on this dude. Again, hopefully you picked him up last week when I talked about him on my TikTok. I said he was one of the best ads because of the Adam Thielen injury, and now we are paying the price for it. If you did not pick him up last week, Xavier Legette has to be rostered in pretty much every single league. And now, my number 1 waiver ad in what I would consider to be the best waiver slate I've seen in 5 years of making fantasy football content is Dontayvion Wicks, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers. To me, he is the best ad on the week. I had Dontayvion Wicks in my top 5 sleepers video, if you guys recall, coming into the season, because as a rookie, he had a 1.94 yards per route run, which was a solid top 24 wide receiver mark, good separation marks per reception perception, and he posted a 77.0 PFF receiving grade. Moral of the story, he had a good rookie season. In week 4, he comes out, he has 13 targets, he has 2 touchdowns in Christian Watson's absence. He expects to be out for at least a month by the looks of it, so it looks like Dontayvion Wicks, whose issue this whole time has been, can he get on the field and run the routes? Well, guess what? 80% of the routes in week 4, I expect that mark to even jump higher now that Christian Watson is going to be out. He has been a weekly wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 play anytime he's been getting a full-time role. Jayden Reed this year, who obviously has been excellent, especially in the 2 games that Jordan Love has played, has a 21% targets per route run rate. You know what Dontayvion Wicks' targets per route run rate is this year? 27%. There is a good chance that he's not just the number 2 behind Jayden Reed here. He could be the number 1 ahead of Jayden Reed here. So with Dontayvion Wicks, he's a good route runner. He's a good separator. He's big. He gets red zone targets. He earns targets as well. That is a huge, huge thing. This offense is good, man. I want pieces of this offense, and Dontayvion Wicks has a chance to be the most valuable piece of this offense. It is not hyperbolic to drop 30, 40, 50, even 60% of your budget on this guy. I think this could be a very, very good staple wide receiver 3 rest of the season, potentially even better. So go ahead and put in some claims for Dontayvion Wicks. I will be spending up big on him in my fantasy football leagues. This was a great waiver slate. So if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Again, if you have questions, I will refer you to the fact that if my number 5 player and my number 3 player are available, I would go after my number 3 player, assuming positional need is similar in a vacuum and all that good stuff. So if you do have any questions, leave them down below. If you do want our rest of season rankings, I updated mine this morning. Those are available, updated rest of season rankings as of the end of week 4 on flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FSE when you sign up. You'll get 30% off all of our packages there. You'll get 7 days for free. If you sign up annually, you can get a free team review voucher and 6 months for free when you sign up annually. So if you want me to review your redraft team, look at the team, tell you what I think I would do, all that kind of stuff, I can do that for you if you sign up annually using the promo code FSE. And we also have tons of other features. Our trade calculator is free. Our trade finder tool is free. You can go check out the site. Of course, you can super chat us, quote unquote, by going to the site and submitting a question. All the links for that are down below. Of course, our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. If you want to support the show, use promo code FSE when you sign up over there. Deposit $10, and you will also get our weekly start-sit rankings for free for the remainder of the season. So with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.